Check us out to hear the latest on life in the volunteer state. Yvonnca and her guests discuss everything from life, love, and business with a Tennessee flair.
It's a Tennessee thing.
Always relatable, always relevant, and always a good time. This is Talking Tennessee, and now your host, Yvonnca.
This episode is brought to you by the Landes team, your go-to real estate family in East Tennessee. If you are looking to buy or sell, we are the ones you should call. Give us a call at 865-660-1186 or check out our website at YvoncaSellsRealEstate.com. That's Yvonnca, YVONNCA, sellsrealestate.com.
Welcome back to Talking Tennessee with Yvonnca. I am your host, and I am here with 1998 championship quarterback from the University of Tennessee, T. Martin. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me here.
Most definitely.
Really nice, and it's really cool setup, and glad to be here.
Thank you. You know what? People really, really admire you. Wow. I have watched your career. I've been to games, and I hear people talk, and people always talk about how nice you are, how, pleasant you are, and you're so willing to help young people. Mm-hmm. So I want to say publicly, thank you for what you do for our community, and just for you just to come back, and say, you know what, I want to do something in Ball Nation, that type thing. So let's get into it. Who is T. Martin?
Well, it's a great question. When I think about myself, and every day you wake up with yourself and meditation and all that good stuff. I'm just a simple guy from Mobile, Alabama. I see myself as my mother's son, my father's son, my kid's father, my wife's husband. Mm-hmm. I'm a granddad.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
My grandson is a year old now.
Yes.
Yeah. And just I'm just simple. I like the simple things. I still like exercising.
Yes.
I like hip hop, R&B, old school, 90s R&B.
Yes, 90s, 90s. I tell my daughter it's not like the 90s music.
No doubt. It'll never happen again.
It was
the best time for music ever.
The best time in the experiences. You think about in the 90s when we were in school and all that kind of stuff. So many things happened. Right. The athletes that came through there, the music that came through there, just all different industries. It just excelled in the 90s.
It excelled, and it inspired our generation.
It really has.
To do the things that we did.
Yes.
For a lot of them, they were pioneers. Like hip hop, it was like, it came from,
it
was just infancies. And we were just kind of trying it out, dressing like this and listening to that.
Yes. Remember crisscross?
Crisscross, wearing your pants backwards.
Yes.
We just tried things.
Hanging.
Yeah, And so, that's who I am to the core. And, as a young kid, I developed this love for all sports. I kind of ran around the neighborhood, barefoot, shirt off, tore up t-shirt, playing basketball, football, baseball. I ran track. I was on the juggling team. I was on the tumbling team.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So you just wanted to try everything to see what was your thing.
I just wanted to stay busy.
Yes.
I was that kid that had to, I got in trouble in class because I would finish before everybody and I would be talking.
Yes.
And so my teachers figured out, flipped the paper over and started drawing pictures on the other side just to keep me quiet and keep me busy. And so I just always wanted to do things. I was curious.
As a kid, they say to us, to stay busy is one way to stay out of trouble.
Right.
And I believe that,
True.
because if you stay busy, you don't have time to get in trouble. And so that probably helped you a lot, just staying busy and just trying different things, in your community. So your mom, you talk about your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Tell me something about your mom and dad that really stuck with you.
The fact that they were young parents, and in so many ways, we all grew up together. My mom was 16, junior in high school when I was born. Okay. And my dad was 17, a senior in high school, getting ready to go off to college.
Yes.
My dad went to Mississippi Valley State, which is where Jerry Rice, he and Jerry Rice were teammates in college.
Really?
Yeah, and my dad was really like the person I looked up to because he was a great football player.
He was your guy.
He was really good at everything. He was track, basketball, baseball, football. He raced me. I was drafted in 2000. I don't know how old he would have been then. Yes. But we raced, and I barely beat him by like 2-3
Really?
hours. Oh, yeah. And he was like smoking a cigarette. He's like, "You think you faster than me?"
He's like,
and we racing. I was like,
"He's like, I'm gonna show you."
So he's just one of those kind of athletes. They're just different, you know. And my mom was athletic as well. You know, she was RN.
Yes.
And she did healthcare for all of my life. That's all I've ever known her to do.
Yeah.
Working at geriatric homes and kids who struggle from just different kind of illnesses. Throughout my life, I was always at her job, always working, spending holidays with her at work. But she also was on the softball team, and she was like a power hitter. I was the bat boy. It's this women's softball league. Yeah. And I'm like the bat boy. I'm like, my mom can really hit this ball.
She can really hit the ball.
And so she was athletic in her own
right.
right.
So you gained it naturally through your parents and even just the nurturing part, how you nurture kids now. Yeah. It just seems like your parents nurtured you, you know, even though they were young and they were, you know, Adrienne, when I was raising Adrienne and all that kind of stuff, I was young. I was 22 years old. You know, you're still a kid. No, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so we kind of grew up together, you know, because it was like, okay, I got to figure it out and trial and error and all that kind of stuff. Now, Jaden came later, you know, and so I knew more and I was smarter then. But with Adrienne, it was true trial and error. So I can imagine with your parents being 16 and 17-year-old, trying to raise you and trying to do the right thing. So what was it like as a child, you know, in Mobile? What was it? Yeah. What was it like?
It was a great training ground for who I became as a person. Okay. So my parents divorced when I was 3 years old. Okay. So even then they were young, you know, going through divorce, and then my mom had 3 kids, you know, in like 9 years. Me and my brother and sisters were all 3 years apart. And so I really think about that. You know, when you're young and living it, mom is like mom. And in your mind, you think that they're so much older. Yeah. And so, but I really had to give her a lot of grace and just a lot of respect and just honor her even more once I became a parent. I bet. And I looked back and I was like, dude, she was only like 23 years old with like 3 kids. Like, what? Yes. You know, and
my mother was like
that. For me? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I look at my mother's not living now, but I look back and I think of those. I'm like, my mom held it down. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Even with everything that she was going through in her life, you know, just trying to live, you know, find her significant other, that type thing. Yes. You know, my mother still held it down. We didn't miss any meals. Right. You know what I'm saying?
As kids, you try to compare your life to some of your friends and what they had that you may not have had. Yes. But it was love, it was care, it was support. Yes. Like you said, never missed a meal. Mm-hmm. Now, was it what somebody else had at the time you compare, but then when you look back, you go, man, how did she do that with 3 kids? Finishing school, having to work, making bills. Like we moved 18 times before I graduated high school. Really? Within the same city. Okay. Right? So when you're going through it, it's like turmoil. Yes. You're like, man, this is crazy. Yes. Like, I'm in a different neighborhood all the time, meeting so many people. Mm-hmm. But then you get out of it, you grow up, and you become a parent, you look back, and I'm like, wow. Like you said,
but she
held it down.
She held it down.
She did what she had to do to make ends meet.
And that's what I honor, you know, my parents, because I'm like, my mom, you know, when she held it down, you know, even when there was times that we didn't have what other people did have or whatever, you know, my mom and dad didn't have a lot of money. They had good jobs, but it was in the 70s, and, you know, 3 kids in the 70s, it just, you know, money only goes so far. Yeah. But one thing I can say about my mom and dad, I didn't feel like I was going without everything. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yes, there was things that I saw my other friends get, but there was a lot of things that I could say I really didn't feel. Right. I didn't feel poor. Right. I didn't feel, you know, like we didn't have anything because that love and that village. Yeah.
I write poetry, and way back, I don't know, I might have been in college, and one of my lines that I remember, I said, I didn't know I was poor until I saw rich. And it's kind of speaking to that. Like, I didn't know what I didn't have until I went to like my first mansion, and I was living around like, what? Yes. Like, you need this many rooms? Like, how many
and why is it so big? And, you know, that type of thing.
So I didn't, you know, you're in your environment.
But you appreciated, think about it. You appreciated, you know, big houses are great, but they can be very cold as well.
And a house is not a home.
You see what I'm saying?
So,
versus, I'll say in the black community, and I can only speak because I'm black, but in the black community, that was such a strong feeling of, we didn't have big old houses, that type thing in my community, but we didn't desire it either. You know what I'm saying? We loved, all of us being together, or going to our neighbor's house and, going to their cookouts and all that because, the cookout was everything.
The cookout was everything. Grandmama's house on Sundays was everything.
Yes.
After church. The ushers, the deacon board cooking on Sundays.
That was everything.
Was great. And like today, you went from that, you speaking about community, thinking about how we were raised. Nowadays, we live in communities where we don't even know our neighbors.
Come on.
And you talk about it takes a village to raise a child. I was one of those children who benefited from the village having something to do with it, because there were nights where we didn't have, but then my friend Omar did, and my friend Michi. I was spending the night at Omar's house, spending the night at Michi's house, spending the night at Nick's house.
Yes, and you still got a meal.
Still got a meal, and nobody cared. Nobody called your mom and was like, Venmo me $20 because your son wants to eat Chick-fil-A.
Yes, or there was no Cash App.
No.
But we really, truly, that village helped us. It molded us, and it showed us. You know what? If I got it, you got it. You said that's what the village teaches you. Is that if I got it, you got it, and we're gonna do it together. And so I think with our childhoods being that way. You going into sports.
Right, yeah.
All the different facets of sports that you went in. What made you pick football to be that it for you?
Oh, wow. Football, I kind of stumbled on football.
Okay.
Because I grew up in a housing project on Eagle Drive, 1614 Eagle Drive. And what they call Birdsville.
Oh, you just like me. I will never forget the address.
Never forget.
The project that I grew up in.
473-2171.
Yes.
Yeah. And so every street was named after a bird, and we happened to live on Eagle Drive. Right across the street from my great-grandmother's place, it was a baseball field.
Okay.
Right? And knowing that Hank Aaron was from my hometown, all you heard and read was about Hank Aaron, Willie Mays. All these Satchel Paige, and all these people who were from that area in South Alabama who had made it in baseball. So I really wanted to be a baseball player. And I would play by myself. I would throw the ball off the wall and work on grounding, throwing the ball in the air, work on fields and catches, hitting into the fence by myself. I'm talking about I would just get up in the morning.
He said he wanted to be a baseball player.
I wanted to be baseball 100%. And just by myself out there wanting to play baseball. And then my Uncle Arthur, who is really like a father figure in my life. He now works with the Army Corps of Engineers. He's an mechanical engineer.
Okay.
He was born handicapped to where he couldn't do sports.
Okay.
But he was a member of the Boys Club.
Okay.
The Boys Club just so happened, God thankfully so, was right across the street as well. So you had the Boys Club, and you had that baseball field that was literally across the street from my great-grandmother's house. And my uncle comes in one day and was like, you want to come to the boys club with me? I was like, because I thought it was like big boys. I was like, I'm little. I thought it was like big boys. Because he's 10 years older than I am. So I'm like, man, all these big old dudes, you want me to come over there?
And I'm little.
I thought that it was just all bigger kids over there. And I go and I realized it was kids in their 6 years old, 7, 8. And everybody was just, and it was like the best thing I'd ever seen. And so that's when I got introduced to everything. Basketball, football, all these other sports. Yeah. And it was just the way arts and craft, all the programs that the Boys Club had that kept us busy.
We had it in our community.
Yes, but allowed us to be creative, allowed us to be expressive. Like I'm saying, being on the juggling team, being on the tumbling team, the arts and craft program, baseball, football, basketball, all of the trips to go to the swimming pool, all these different things. I remember these things very clearly because
our childhoods are a lot alike. Because that's how my childhood was.
Yeah.
We had all that in our community, and it was people in the community that made sure that we got exposed to it.
That you got exposed to it, no question. And so I was that kid that just woke up in the morning, went to the boys club, and I was there until it closed for years.
That was me.
So then my mother, she finished school, and she was like, okay, it's time for you to live with me now. So I left my great-grandmother's house and moved with my mom in a totally different community. And it wasn't that walk across the street and the boys club was there. It was more of neighborhood that had a park, but I didn't know anybody in the park, then whatever. So
like
me just being like a curious kid, I would just leave the house and just walk around the neighborhood, and I stumbled on a football practice, a Little League football practice. But I didn't know anyone. I didn't know coaches. I didn't know any of the players. And I used to just go and sit there and just watch without bothering them. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how good I was, and none of this stuff.
You just went to play.
I just went to just watch.
Yeah,
I really didn't know anyone. Mm-hmm. And so a ball, they threw the ball too far, kicked it or whatever. The ball kind of comes over by where I was sitting. And I just threw the ball back to the coach.
Really?
And it was, I don't know, 40 yards. I don't know. I was at that time like 11 years old. And the coach goes, hey.
And you had never played?
I had never been on an organized football team before. I kind of just played at the boys' club.
At 11 years old.
Like in the neighborhood. You know, we used to have a game called Pick 'em Up and Spill 'em, where you just threw it up, yes. Everybody tried to tackle you. That was like my, you know, that's all I knew about football. And the coach goes, just stay right there until after practice. I waited. And he put me in his car and took me to my mom's. I was like, I live here, whatever. Yeah. He goes, I need to talk to your mother. And he walks in and he's like, listen, your son needs to play football. And my mom was like, what? And he's like, we'll pay for it, we'll get his uniform, whatever. But your son needs to play football. And my mom at the time, we didn't have insurance. And she's like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know about him getting hurt. You know, and she went against it. She was like, no. And I'm like, man, I want to do something. I don't want to just sit in the house. So I'm kind of looking at the coach like, man, try harder.
Try harder. So, I need you to help me out a little bit.
So she didn't let me go that time. Mm-hmm. So I kept going. And I kept coming back, Mom, like, I think I want to play. And she finally gave in to allow me to play. And that's really how I started playing. It was at Navajo Park, the Vikings, and I made the team as a quarterback. And Coach Henry Pugh was the head coach. And if it weren't for him recognizing me there and bringing me home and asking my mom, could I play, I don't know if I would have played or pursued football.
So you went through the ball, coach saw you, took you to the house, tried to get your mom to allow you to play football. She said no a few times. And then you just finally talked her into it. And kept nagging at her. And so she finally did. I mean, just, can you think back to that, T. Martin?
Yeah.
You know, how did that feel when that coach said he needs to be playing? Did that make you feel like gave you self-worth?
Yeah,
in a way?
Two things it did. Number one, it was the first time outwardly. It was the second time, but for football, because my baseball coach at the boys' club, Larry Dickens, really believed in me in baseball, and he had played baseball at the University of Alabama, and that was his first job out of college, was at that boys' club. So he was a young dude, like very energetic, and he was good in baseball, and he believed in me as a baseball player. But for football, it's the first time someone had stood up and said, this kid can play football.
Yes.
So I didn't want him to be wrong. And then I knew my mom didn't want me to play. Right. So I was like, this got to work and I can't get hurt because my mom will stop me from playing.
Yes.
So I kind of took it as very appreciative for Coach Pugh standing up for me. So I didn't want to let him down. And he supported me. Yes. But there were times when my mom would be at work, he would pick me up from school and give me the football practice. Like, it was a village.
And that's a big thing about our communities is that, because I know I played basketball all the way through school and to high school, and that was the biggest thing is if your parents were at work, there was somebody in the community that was going to get you there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Or truly say, you know what, if you got to leave early, I'll make sure they get home. Yeah. And so you had that.
No question.
But so what made you, so you start playing football, and it sounds like it took off, very quickly, and so then you got to high school. Yeah. Tell me, what was it like? What was T. Martin in high school?
Yeah, so from 8th grade to 9th grade, that summer, I grew like 3 inches and gained like 45 pounds. Okay. But I went from being kind of not heavy set, but like kind of a chubbier, thicker athlete.
Yes.
Quarterback that didn't really run a whole lot to like 6'1.5", 6'2", 186 pounds like over the summer. Because I had to make weight to play, Little League. You had to, and I was always the kid with the trash bag on, like running around the field. Yes. I always had to lose 5 pounds every week.
Yes.
So like make weight.
It's like I was eating real good.
I was eating good and I was growing.
Yes.
You know, knees hurting because I had grown so fast, like all that stuff. And so I was 14 years old going to high school. My birthday was July 25th and had just turned 14 years old as a freshman in high school. Okay. And didn't have any intent on like starting. I was just wanting to go out for the football team. At the time, you had a freshman team and a varsity team.
Yes.
I didn't know which team I was going to play on. And so I just, you know, it was varsity practice, it was training camp. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of noticed that, you know, I was having success. I was doing fine. But the starter was a senior. And so the first game, I didn't beat him out. You know, second game, we were kind of struggling a little bit. Okay. And he had thrown a couple of interceptions. And at halftime, head coach walks over. He's like, hey, if he throw another pick, you're going to be in the game. And sure enough, he threw a pick coming out at halftime. And he was
when the coach said that to you,
I thought he was playing. I thought he was just mad at the quarterback.
You probably had excitement at the same time.
No, I didn't. No,
you were scared.
No, because you got to think, Mobile, Alabama high school football, it's like 15,000 people in the stands.
Okay.
It is big time. Okay. And our stadium sat 45,000 people. So it's the Senior Bowl stadium. It's where they played the Senior Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so you're 14, you're looking around like,
and you're seeing all these people.
So the band back then was just like Alabama Stadium, Grand like FAMU band. It's loud. It's all this pageantry going on. And I'm 14 years old. And it's like, I'm kind of looking like, oh, he's just mad.
Yeah.
But he was serious.
He was serious.
And he said, enough,
you up.
He threw an interception and I get thrown in the game, 14 years old. And we were down by like 10, brought the team back, we win by a touchdown. And the rest was history. I ended up being the starter for the rest of the year. I ended up breaking my hand, and so my season was cut short. But I ended up winning the starting job, and that's kind of really, that was it. That was kind of my introduction to high school football. And
so you just basically excelled.
From that point,
yeah. So what made you come to University of Tennessee? What drew you here?
So, interesting. So the family that I was really close with, when I played Little League football at Navico Park, the team mother, her name is Adrienne Landes. Her family was from Knoxville, Tennessee. Okay. And I remember I was 11 or so, and I used to spend the night there the night before games because they would take me to the park. And sometimes my family would have to work, my mom would have to work. So my only way of getting the game sometimes was to spend the night with them. Yeah. And her husband Rick was our defensive coordinator on the football team. Okay. And so I think Rick lives here now too. Shout out Rick Daniel. And so they took me in. They would buy stuff for me, you know, feed me.
I think I know Rick Daniels.
Yeah, big, strong muscles just built up. I wanted to be like Rick. Yes. He was like bodybuilder, working in the railroad company. And we all grew up wanting to be like Coach Rick. And so I don't know anything other than Mobile, Alabama, right? So
Rick bought his house for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's good. But no, great man.
That's amazing. Yeah. Small world.
But I just remember one summer, and I don't know if it was their family reunion or what it was, but they asked my family could I ride with them to Tennessee. Yes. I don't know anything about Tennessee. I just knew it was a long ride. Yes. And it was Knoxville, Tennessee. But it doesn't register in my mind. I'm a kid. And we're just kind of passing by this huge stadium. I don't know anything. And years go by.
You didn't know what Ball Nation was like or anything about balls.
Nothing. My extent of Tennessee football at that time was the Alabama-Tennessee game. Was just, you know, it was 2 games I watched every year. It was the Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama. And it was the third Saturday in October, Tennessee and Alabama. Because I was a Florida State, Miami fan. Okay. You know, South Alabama, we kind of are fans of a lot of different things. Yes. You're close to Florida State, so you kind of like some of the Florida schools, some of Alabama. You kind of go all over the place in South Alabama. And that's how it was. And so, but when I started being recruited, like, it was just something familiar about Tennessee that just kept coming back. And so Pat Washington, who was the receiver coach here at the time, was from Mobile, Alabama. Pat's aunt was my English teacher my senior year in high school. Wow. So when he started calling, Pat was like neighborhood legend. He was the quarterback at Auburn when Bo Jackson played at Auburn. All right. So as a kid, I grew up wanting to be like Pat Washington. And so my connection to Tennessee was hearing from Pat Washington and like this neighborhood hero in a sense who just so happened to be the receiver coach at Tennessee. And so that was a bond there. It was kind of like this instant trust. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think Tennessee was really interested, early on.
Okay.
And it was like, Alabama, Auburn, Dale, and I was the top quarterback in the state at the time. So my senior year, Auburn played Florida at like 1 o'clock in Auburn. Tennessee played Alabama in Birmingham at night at like 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So I went to the Auburn-Florida game. Florida blew out Auburn. And I was like, I ain't going to Auburn.
He's like, I ain't going to Auburn.
We get in the car. My godparents took me on this trip. We get in the car and drive to Birmingham from Auburn. I'm walking in the gate as Peyton threw a touchdown to Joey Kent. Right? I'm like walking in the gate as Joey is like scoring a touchdown.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, he's from Huntsville, Alabama. Like Joey JK he's from Alabama. And I'm kind of watching this Alabama player, this guy from Alabama, beating Alabama at Tennessee. And I just watched Tennessee play. I'm an Alabama recruit. I'm on their tickets. I'm sitting on the Alabama side. And I'm just watching Tennessee with just all this swag and energy and just, I was like, that's where.
Because when you're in the stadium with Vols, it was
rocking.
wild.
And it was Birmingham. It was Alabama's territory. And Tennessee came in and won the game, and it was just impressive to watch. And at that moment, that's what I said. I like what they're doing, and I started reaching out. I started calling.
Your blood started turning orange.
Well, I started calling him collect.
Really?
Back then I didn't have a cell phone.
Yes.
So it's like collect call from. I'm calling coach. I'm calling them, and so I started pursuing Tennessee for the most part because I really felt like Florida State, they had signed a quarterback the year before. I didn't really like it, and it was like Notre Dame, Nebraska, those places I took the trip to, and I said, man, Tennessee, reciprocates the energy and like really is interested in me, then I could possibly go to Tennessee, and so it kind of fell that way. Tim Couch, who I thought they really wanted, ended up going to Kentucky, and so I committed. And in my mind, I was like, they really wanted somebody else, but I want them, and it's a chip on my shoulder to kind of make this thing work. And
you're like, I want to be at University of
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I wanted to be at Tennessee at that moment. Yes. And then at that time, Rick and everybody, Nick, their son, kind of had put two and two together for me, like, no, that's where we went. That trip was to Knoxville, Tennessee. And it had all kind of came together, like, well, this is supposed to happen. And so, that's really how it came together.
So that's how you got to UT.
Really. It had a lot to do with Pat Washington. It had a lot to do with my comfort level, too, with David Cutcliffe, because I really didn't know much about, like, quarterback development at the time. Okay. And I had watched Heath Schuler play. I had watched Peyton a little bit. But when he talked to me about how he would develop me as a quarterback, it made sense to me, and it was something that I was interested in doing. I wanted to learn. Like, I'm a learner. And he didn't, like, kiss my tail on a visit. He talked about how we were going to work hard, how we were going to get better, and all of these things. And he told me the truth about where I was, and I appreciated that. Okay. Because everybody else was telling me what I wanted to hear.
But
and
he
Coach
just
Cut
told
was
you
like
what the
serious.
truth was.
Yeah, he did. So and he said, you need someone like me in your life. And he was right. He was a disciplinarian. He was, he didn't let me slip like anywhere. And so, and it was right. It was the right relationship at the right time, at the right place. And that's really what drew me to Tennessee, because I didn't know much else other than that.
Well, so once you got to UT and you got your flow and all of that, and got to Ball Nation and got to see how the fans is unmatched, was there any times that you felt like, okay, I didn't make the right decision, or did it just take off immediately? This is the right decision, and I'm gonna go.
No, it was tough because I had to sit, which I knew that Peyton was going into his junior year and that he was starting quarterback. Like
exactly.
And that was part of it. It was like, go learn.
You knew up front.
Sit your freshman year, and you have an opportunity to follow you, because I knew how good Peyton was. Like, there's no way this dude's coming back for another year, which he decided to come back for another year.
And you're like, wait a minute.
And that's the only time. That was the only time that I was like, man, another year?
Yes.
Like, I have to
that
wait
you have to
another
wait
year
another
to play.
year.
Because I just feel like you only get better through playing. And you can practice all you want, but I know the level that I wanted to play, and I just know who I was as a player. And like, you can try to reenact all these things, you can try to play the game in your head, but it's nothing like playing. And it's not fun not playing.
Right.
And so I wasn't having fun because everything about
you
my
wanted
happiness,
you wanted your moment. You wanted your time to be on the field playing and excelling. And
you just want to be rewarded for working hard.
Exactly.
It was more so about that. It was like, man, I'm over here lifting, I'm running, I'm going, I'm doing all these things, and nobody gets a chance to see like what I'm doing because I'm only doing it at practice.
But one thing about God, one thing about God, He always on time.
Yeah.
Because look at your career. Look what happened.
That was great.
Okay, let's talk about 1998.
Right.
You were having a fantastic year, you know, and let me go back a little bit. Coming in behind Peyton. Tell me what that was like.
Just big shoes to fill, you know, and Peyton and I, you know, being quarterbacks, we're in the room together, you know, every day, and I watched his work ethic, you know, watched the things that he did to get prepared for games, and just was on the sideline just watching them play. You know, I tried to learn as much as I could.
Right.
And so, you know, that part I had a firm understanding of, like, what you're charged to do as the leader of this football team. And no better person to show you that than how Peyton led, you know, by example. But we were different. And it wasn't to me like the opportunity to play behind Peyton, more so than it was I'm different than him. And what are people going to expect? You know, I'm really not this stand in the pocket, drop back type guy. Okay. You know, in high school, I threw the ball 40, 45 times a game. I was in the shotgun every play. I called my own plays. I checked at the line of scrimmage. Like, I did what I wanted to do in high school. And so I kind of went from being like this free-spirited type player to like, man, this is a pro-style offense. They want you to drop back, you know, to be on the center. And it kind of like wasn't what I was from a system standpoint, but I knew the growth of a quarterback, you kind of had to play that style of football at the time. Like the style of football we play today, it didn't exist back then.
Gotcha.
So you kind of, the way I played high school football is how they play football now.
Gotcha.
You know, shotgun, quarterbacks doing what they want. You know, you running, you know, you scrambling. The way I played high school was how we played now, but the way I had to play at Tennessee was totally different than how I played high school football. So I had to adjust.
Was it a challenge to show people I'm different? It doesn't mean
it was a challenge to play football that way.
You get what I'm saying?
I don't know the last time I had been under the center, like taking a snap.
Okay.
Like I was a shotgun, run and shoot quarterback. But I think that at that time, when you're African American, you're athletic, people just thought that you were like an option dude or whatever.
Yes.
And so I had to deal with that too, just like what people thought I was versus what I really am versus how I have to play in this system.
Did you ever feel like that people wanted to try to mold you in to another Peyton?
Not the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff knew what I was.
Exactly.
But I hadn't played. So I couldn't ask David Cutcliffe to say, oh man, let's go out here and throw it 40 times with a quarterback that hadn't played.
Right.
You know, and we had Jamal Lewis.
You had made the history of it. You know, the history of what your history would be. Because you hadn't played, so you didn't have a history to show, okay, this is what I've done in my past.
That's right.
You know, that type thing. So, so take me to, okay, I'm in 1998. I'm having the best year of my life. You know, what was it like, you know, everybody, the anticipation? Tell me about of that year.
I just took one day at a time. I didn't look at the top of the mountain. I didn't. I felt like we were a good football team, and we had just won the SEC championship the previous year. We had lost in the Orange Bowl to Nebraska. So I knew who was coming back. I knew what kind of defense we would have. Knew about Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, Travis Stevens, Sean Bryson. Knew we had a great backfield. Phil Crosby, you know, Will Bartholomew at fullback. Tight ends. Like, I knew we were good. A good offensive line. And I was like, man, I have to be the one to not screw it up. You know, because these guys have played. Like, Al Wilson is proven. Like, these, my roommate, Dwayne Goodrich, these guys are proven. Steve Johnson, they're proven. Deion Grant, they're proven. All right, Sean Ellis, like all these different guys. And I'm like, I'm the one that hasn't played. Like, these guys play. I'm the one that hasn't played. And so my whole thing that I focused on was just doing my job. And I just felt like if I could just do my job and be the best quarterback and be for the team, then we were going to have a good year. I didn't see national championship undefeated.
I was about to say, did you ever just stop and think, you know, of course, game after game you were winning and stuff like that, but did you ever stop and think of, we might win a national championship? No. Or did you just do game by game?
It was like game by game. It literally was game by game because we won some very close games. Just like how we were undefeated, we could have had 4 losses as well. You know, and that kept us in perspective. It kept everything in perspective. Like that Arkansas game, the Syracuse game. Like, dude, you could have also lost games as well. So it kept it all in perspective. I thought Philip and the staff did a great job of the messaging to our team, keeping us hungry, keeping us focused on 1 week at a time. And it's like this coach is saying that everybody watching the news, like, yeah, I always say 1 week at a time. But no, it really was a 1 week at a time approach. And when Jamal went down, you know, we kind of relied on our run game early in the season. And then when Jamal went down, we were a little bit more balanced and relied on the passing game just a little bit more. I just thought at that time I had to pick it up and really be the quarterback that I knew I always was, which was I like to throw the football. Mm-hmm. You know, I used to get bored in games, you know, just handing it off and just like.
Really?
Yeah, I used to just be bored, you know, just like bored, like mentally bored.
Yes, because you wanted to have more action.
Well, I'm a quarterback.
And throw, yes.
And like quarterbacking is protections and checking at the line of scrimmage. I had done it since I was 15 years old. I have been calling my own plays. I have been in charge.
Yes.
You know, pointing people, you know, all of that. And I had to like go backwards. And then, you know, I was like, okay, I'll do it. You know, it's cool, whatever. But I was bored out of my mind. And so when things happened that allowed me to have a little bit more responsibility in my relationship with Coach Cudd and him seeing that he could trust me more got better as the season went on, I started having more fun.
Did you ever go through, like, in your first season, when Peyton's gone, did you ever feel intimidated by just, okay, I'm coming after Peyton, you know, did you ever feel intimidated by Peyton's legacy? That part or whatever?
No, because we were living the life. It wasn't a legacy yet. You understand? Yes. It wasn't a legacy. Mm-hmm. It was, we just had a really good quarterback for 4 years at Tennessee.
Yes.
And you're coming behind this guy.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the legacy of Peyton Manning, you know, you become a legend after you leave and like years later, right?
Correct.
So we were like in the moment. And Peyton to me was my teammate. He was like, he was my roommate on the road. Like we were in meetings together. So I wasn't like, Peyton Manning. It was like, man, that's Peyton. You know what I mean? Like he was my teammate.
So when he left, let me ask you this. Did he give you any advice once when he's going out the door, you know, I'm done, I'm handing it down here, you know, did he give you any advice on what to do?
He just wished me luck. No, not really.
That's good.
Not really. He just said good luck. You know, that's as far as I can remember.
Yes.
You know, and we you know, I was seeing when he came in town or whatever, but we didn't have like this sit down moment of let me give you advice. And that didn't happen. But
you just took it and ran.
He supported from, you know, where he was and you know, number one pick of the draft, he had enough on his plate.
Yes.
And so, and that was like calling, but you know, the nag on all this kind of stuff. And for me, I was ready for my turn. You know, it was nothing against Peyton. There was nothing like, I knew the best thing for Tennessee football was for Peyton Manning to come back, you know, for our team. And everything that he wanted personally, everything that we wanted as a team in the university was to win that championship. Like all these things, right?
But you wanted your time.
Yeah, selfishly as an athlete, if you don't want to play, something's wrong with you.
I agree.
As an athlete.
I totally agree.
And so I'm a very, very competitive person, period. And so I was selfish at the time in terms of, man, I'm ready to play.
I'm ready to play.
And so it was nothing against
Peyton. I don't care who's you didn't care who's in the spot. It wasn't Peyton or it could have been anybody. It was just your time to play.
When you're a competitor and you work hard every day, you want to play. And that's just all that was about. It was nothing about anything else.
So what was your biggest challenge off the field on the road to winning a championship? What was your biggest challenge that you would say?
I would just say staying focused and blocking out the outside noise.
Okay.
Because as you're winning each week, it's hard to not recognize that, and it's hard to not start believing what the fan base is saying, what the media is saying, it's hard not to buy into that.
Did you have to stop listening to the radio and the TV just to stay focused?
I'll tell you when I stopped watching the news I think we were like 8-0, 9-0, somewhere in there. And I didn't have a great game. And I remember we were undefeated watching the news. I'm ironing my clothes, getting ready to go to class. And the whole segment was about how I shouldn't be the starting quarterback anymore. And, I got so pissed. And I'm like, dude, what do you got to do? Like, what do you got to do? Like, I guess being undefeated is not enough. I guess, winning every game is not enough. Yeah. And literally, the segment was about how I should be replaced by somebody else.
And that's when you stop listening to the radio.
Yeah, and that's what took my motivation to another level. Like, it took
gave you a bigger drive.
It just took everything to another level. But I'm kind of I kind of have like an internal deal. I didn't go and sit down and Coach Cut or tell anybody how I felt. I just
kept it to yourself.
Drove myself almost to a point of just insanity. Like my personal life with like partying and all that stuff was just like out the door. It was just like this. Even school, like I'd be sitting in class, but I'd be studying play. You know what I mean? I figured out if I make a C, I'll make a C. I don't care. Yeah. But we about to beat Florida.
And he said we're gonna beat Florida.
Whatever it was, it just took my competitive drive like to another level. And internally, I just wanted to do more. And you notice towards that part of the year, I started running more and started doing different things because I was like, okay then, all right, that's what it is. And I knew what it was. Being an African American quarterback in the SEC is not an easy task. And
you see more African Americans now, but back when you were coming down there, you didn't see that. And I can imagine how hard that was to get people to accept. You know what? I'm just as good, if not better or whatever. But what was your biggest challenge on the field?
Well, it was not letting Country Holloway down.
Okay.
And everyone who came before me, Sterling Hinton and Jerry Colquitt, all of those guys who had came before me.
Yes.
T-Rob, I had T-Rob's picture on my wall.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He was cold. He had the orange wristband, he had the nice face mask. Yeah. Dude was cold. And I was like, if I mess this up, then everything those guys did was for nothing. You know what I mean? And so I cared a lot about that because I knew that they were pulling for me, and Country was on our staff. So I got a chance to see.
See, I remember Tony Robinson. I remember way back then and all that. Yeah, I was a kid then, but yes, I remember all of that. So because my daddy was a big UT fan. I mean, just totally. He's not living now, but that was a a lot of things has happened over the years, and you have set a platform for African Americans in football to say, you know what, I brought a championship. Yeah. I brought a championship to University of Tennessee, and my team helped me to bring this championship. Yes, so what was your mentally, how did you deal with the championship, leading up to the championship? Yeah. Mentally, how did you deal with that?
I just wanted to just stay the course and recognize that it wasn't all about me. I had my own individual motivations and reasons why I did what I did. But every day I got a chance to go out there and see how we were just a good football team. Special teams, Jeff Hall and those guys. We were just a good football team. And for the first time for my high school team, we really weren't, we didn't win a lot of games. Okay. And we weren't champions, we didn't win state, like that. It was that first good feeling of man, we can really win a championship as we started getting there. So the challenge was, man, just one game at a time.
One game at a time.
And not start celebrating, early.
Well, I'm about to ask you a question, okay? It might be a tough one. What at that time when the clock ran out?
Oh yeah.
At the bowl. Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
What was going through your head?
It was party time. It was party time. It was the first chance you got to just let the air out. Yeah. It just felt like we had been, all year. And it was that game, okay, that game, and it was the last game. Yes. It was for all the marbles, and we finally had one. The confetti's coming, our fans are there, and it was packed, and it was just
You finally can breathe.
Finally could breathe and celebrate.
Yes.
And enjoy it.
What did you say to your team at the start of that game? I mean, I'm not exact words because you probably can't remember exact thing, but being in the locker room and getting ready to go out and play that game, what was your preparation for your team? To lead that team to a championship. What was
I don't know if I ever said this publicly ever, but I think Mary J. Blige.
Exclusive.
I think Mary J. Blige was like the pregame entertainment or something.
Okay.
But it was like 25 minutes from when the team came off the field to when we had to be ready to go back on the field because of all the entertainment and television breaks and all that. I went in the locker and went to sleep.
What?
I came off the field.
What?
I came off the field, and it was so much going on, and my brain was racing so much.
You couldn't slow it down.
That I put a towel over my head. I sat in my locker and took a nap, and I slept for about 10 minutes.
Oh wow!
And I started hearing guys walk around, and I took the day. I was like, "It's time to go." And
so that 10-minute nap gave you that?
No, it just gave me just the solitude I needed. It's what I call the calm before the storm. It gave me that sense of calm. It gave me that sense of quieting down my brain. Mm-hmm. Because if your brain is rushing in a moment of competition, you're not going to think clearly. Your heart rate goes up. Like, you start feeling the jitters, what people say, the butterflies. Mm-hmm. And I don't operate that way. Like, I have to be, like, calm. Like, very collected. I have to see things, I have to process things, and that's what a leader has to do. It got me to like where I needed to be to go out and play, and that's how I felt. I knew the magnitude, I knew all of that. It was big. It was big.
You knew it, and you knew the stakes was high.
Yeah, but my brain. I came off the field. I was like, oh my God, this is the national championship game. I was like, dude, towel.
Okay, so who was the first person you looked for
after the game?
After the game.
Oh man, I don't know. I can't remember that. I just remember
was your mom
everybody was coming to us, and my family drove from.
So your whole family was in the stands?
My family drove like 22 hours from Mobile, Alabama to Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
They did it twice. Because the following year we came back for the festival again.
So did you have that moment as Mama made
we saw, they were like in the stands, and back then, like people, well, still now, families aren't like on the field. College football is not the NFL where your families come on the field. So you had to wait till after you showered and. After the locker room, you had to wait on your family.
Oh, okay.
But everybody was just coming up to us, and I just remember the locker room scene and just all these famous people being in our locker room and from the president, all these different people just being at the game.
Oh, so the president was in the locker room. Okay.
Yeah, I just remember all these folks was just, everybody's taking pictures, and it was just great.
Cameras going every which way.
Yeah, and just enjoying it with our team. I remember
Did you get to stop for a minute and just ingest it, or was it just so fast that everything was just?
No, I sat down because we had media. Coach Foreman and all of us. We had media afterwards. So when I got done with all of that, the locker room was kind of half. After everybody took pictures and all that, we went to do media. Came back. It was kind of half, full and kind of quiet. A little bit, everybody's packing up, and I just remember Max and Fraze, who's still at Tennessee now and running the equipment room, them just still being there. And I just kind of just sat in my locker for a little bit. It's kind of like just pulled it all in just for a moment, and then I put my clothes on and just went out with my family. And we just went to Denny's at 8, and then I hurt my ankle.
Wait a minute. Go back. Where did you just tell me you went?
We left with the
Y'all went to Denny's to eat after a national championship.
Yeah, it's like
when you remember at the beginning you said you just like simple things.
Yes, regular.
Yes, he said I went to Denny's and I had one of those. What is the All-Star breakfast or something?
Yeah,
like
we
that.
just hung out as a family.
But I bet you ate a whole bunch.
But I was hurt because I hurt my ankle against Vanderbilt that season.
Okay.
And so a few days later, I had to be flown back here for ankle surgery.
Okay.
I had surgery a couple of days after the national championship game. So that was it. I was in pain, whatever, but I was celebrating and enjoying with my family. And we went back to the hotel and, just celebrated.
Okay. So outside of, like with your teammates and everything, I mean, who are you still close to? Who do you stay in contact with? you know, that type thing. I know that you probably stay in contact with a lot of them, but who are you close to?
Really, one of the, few people, you know, really close with Mickey Allen.
Okay.
You know, Mickey and I were in the same class, and we just spent a lot of time together. You know, he was one of the first people from Tennessee who was from Tennessee that when I was away from home, you know, he took me home with him during holidays at times. And you know, he's from Murfreesboro, and you know, driving through the mountains. And for me, the first time like riding through mountains and doing all this
and
stuff.
you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because that's not like that in Alabama.
Yeah, Neil Johnson was my roommate on the road at times. Dwayne Goodrich, who was my roommate. Jamal, you know, especially with being with the Ravens now, Jamal's always around.
Yes.
And Jamal living in Atlanta, we always cross paths in our families growing up. Al, those guys. Joey Kent. Joey's like my big brother. You know, Joey was my host on my official visit. And Joey also would, you know, make sure I went to church on Sundays too. So, you know, after the Saturday game, I had to get dressed and I'd come outside of the dorm and Joey would be there, parked, blowing his horn, and take me to church. Okay. And so Joey was like a big brother to me.
That's good.
And so, you know, matter of fact, we had, you know, dinner yesterday.
So you still have connect. Connect.
Those are the guys, like Drake says, you know, no new friends, right? So
there you go.
The people who were my friends then are my friends now, and my teammate, they're always my brothers. Like they're everybody. We may not talk all the time, or we may not talk as much as the other guys, but if they need me, if I need them. Matter of fact, I couldn't make it when they unveiled the statue. I couldn't make it.
Yes.
You know, and Billy Ratliff stepped in for me. You know, and was there for me. I was in training camp, and so like we just do stuff like that for each other when we need to.
So y'all still that team that you know rallies with each other, supports each other, all of that. Let me ask you this: what would you say is the most misconception of you? The thought of UT. What could you say? That's a misconception I want to clear up about your time at UT. Is there anything?
I don't know. There's really much that needs to be cleared up. Other than I just didn't talk a whole lot about anything much. Gotcha. I knew the responsibility of who I was, being an African American quarterback at the University of Tennessee. What had happened before me, not only at this university, but what had happened before me in the SEC and nationally for guys like us. And so I understood that, number one, you got to be authentically yourself. And so I didn't try to be anyone else, you know. Okay. I think one of my first interviews here, I had an Outkast AT Aliens t-shirt on. Why? Because Andre Benjamin's my favorite rapper and Outkast my favorite group. Like, so I knew I had to be me, but I also knew what political correctness was. And I also knew that if you're going to make a stand or if you're going to stand for something, nobody's going to respect it until you're good at what you do. So I focused on being great first and winning first, and then getting your message out about what you believe in after that. And so I had my own ways of standing for myself or standing up for the cause, if you will, to try to push forward, you know, to where we are today, where I have opportunity to coach Lamar Jackson, who's the highest paid player in the NFL, and watching what Jalen Hurts is doing, and watching what Deshaun Watson and all these guys are able to do, and Cam Newton, who I started training when he was in the 8th grade, you know, to watch what those guys did with their careers. I understood that at that time, that for us to progress, I had to be right. And so that I didn't talk a lot about that. I didn't really have a platform. I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have Instagram to really like speak my mind. I had to answer the questions that were asked. Gotcha. And that's as far as media was back then. You know, if I went out and did speaking engagements in the communities, you know, I had a summer job at the Caswell Boys Girls Club, and it was like I had influenced myself and Shamik Holzclaw. We worked at the Boys and Girls Club, and it was like, okay, we can influence kids then, but those were small, you know, entities, and the general public didn't get a chance to hear those speeches that I may have given, you know, in Chattanooga or Mobile, Alabama, or somewhere else. You know, you didn't have social media to say, wow, that's how he felt about this. And so you're 25 years later and us talking about it. You know what I mean? And so I can't say that was a misconception. I just think that some things may have been looked upon like, oh, that's may have been how he felt, but you never heard it from me. You know, because that was really no platform to spread that.
Yes.
And I wasn't a self-promoting type person. You know, I just wasn't. So it was.
So is there anything that you can say, gosh, I miss this from Tennessee when I was at Tennessee?
Yeah.
Is there something that you miss?
Yeah, I do have some regrets of like I said earlier, how I just drove myself crazy about being competitive and winning and being right. There's a lot of my social life that I cut out. There's a lot of experiences that my friends who went to Tennessee or people they know or had the opportunity to network with and meet people in the community that I just didn't, because I didn't feel like, number one, I had the time to. Right. Even like stuff like pledging the fraternity. Like those are experiences that I was like, man, I just didn't even have time.
You didn't have time
to go and
probably didn't really even think about it because you just didn't have time to think about anything but football.
Right. Well, the way I felt like I needed to be in football, I felt like I couldn't slip up. Gotcha. Like I felt like I couldn't be.
Did you feel like that because you were a black quarterback,
that had
or
a lot
just
to do
because?
With it.
Okay.
It had a lot to do with it. It wasn't like the number one reason, but I felt like I couldn't mess up. Basically.
You had one chance.
That was parties, right? I had my times on the strip.
Yes.
But I also brought the party to me at times.
Yes.
We had parties at my place.
Yes.
Because I just feel like I can control that.
Yes.
I know who's coming in the doors and I know who's at my apartment. You know what I mean? And so I didn't enjoy the fullness of the University of Tennessee from a social standpoint.
Okay.
Like I wish I had the capacity to do. I wish I had known what to do and how to balance it better, to have a better, more well-rounded experience as just a student.
So is that something that you would say that to tell the kids that they're coming behind you?
Yes.
Is that the thing that you would say is enjoy
it, yes.
Enjoy college.
Enjoy class. Enjoy your classmates. Yes, everybody's looking at you as who you are, but you're not going to be that much longer, right? Life is going to become life.
Yes.
Life will be lifing.
Yes.
Life
will be life.
Life will be lifing.
Yes.
Soon.
Yes.
And it's like you don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You think you're going to play forever. When you're 18, 19, 20, you think you're going to play forever. And you might be 23, 25, 30, whatever that happens. And then you're like, man, who do I know? And you soon find out that your experience is all to do with sports.
Yeah.
And you're like, dang, man, I didn't even know y'all had that party at the whatever.
Yeah.
And my man met his wife over here and da da da.
You're giving
I don't even
advice.
know. I remember your face, but I don't even know your name.
But I think a lot of times that kids get caught up into that sport. Even parents get caught up. I was saying a few days ago, I was saying that sometimes parents can get so caught up into going to the games, traveling with their kids, all that kind of stuff, and and miss that time, that personal time with their kid because it's so much sports. And not saying that sports is not a good thing, but you got to have a balance. So I'm glad that you're speaking on that part, because a lot of parents and kids need to hear that you need to enjoy the experience of college because there's more than just sports to college.
No doubt about it. And I would say that would be one regret, but I can't even call it regret because I just didn't know any better.
Yes.
I just felt like
something that you learned afterwards.
Yeah, and so later on I looked back and I was like, I'm coming back like homecoming or whatever. Like, man, I don't even know these people. Yeah. He's like, man, I went to school with you at Tennessee. I'm like, dang, for real?
Exactly.
It's just because you just was so
it's like you were in a bubble.
Yeah, it really was.
In a bubble.
So that would be the only thing. And I'm meeting people. What's really good about the Vol Nation and just the fan base or that my friends from the University of Tennessee during that time, they were still, just good people later on in life. Like a lot of us, like we hear this, I can't remember where I read this, but we learn a lot about ourselves through our friends.
Yes.
And so a lot of my friends are like, man, you remember that time we went to da-da-da? And I had forgot maybe. And I'm like, I do now.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning a lot about our experience through college through a lot of my friends who had different experiences or a different lens than I had doing that experience. And it's really special. Like I'm friends with a lot of people that I wasn't friends with while we were in school.
But now we're friends.
And it's pretty cool.
Well, everybody, let me just tell you, T. Martin is, you can just tell your energy, you're just a good person. You can just see it. I mean, it's just obvious. Y'all listen, I want to tell you the second part of T. Martin. I've showed you the man. I've showed you the UT football quarterback that won the championship. Tune in next Friday for part 2 of T. Martin and what he's doing now. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to Talkin' Tennessee with Yvonnca. Watch out for our weekly episodes from the first family of real estate. And check us out on the web, www.YvoncaSalesRealEstate.com. See our videos on Yvonca's YouTube channel or find us on Facebook under Yvonnca Landes and Twitter @Yvonnca Landes. And don't forget to tell a friend about us. Until next time, Yvonnca signing off.